we've put in our floor joist. Now, between the basement wall, the top of the basement wall, and the bottom of the floor joist, we have to put in a 2x6 sill plate all the way around the perimeter of the basement wall, because the floor joists don't sit right on top of the basement wall. They sit on a sill plate. We generally put some kind of sill sealer in there as well. It's a fiberglass material, and it just sort of, if there's any cracks, if the basement wall isn't straight across, it's got a little dip in it somewhere or the other, that sill sealer helps to stop the infiltration of air through the house a little bit. So anyway, you can see that I've highlighted the 2x6 sill plate here. You can see where it sits on the top of the basement wall, and then you can see over here where it is as well. So I'm going to delete that and start from the beginning, which is what you would do. So we would go over to the structure, say we're going to draw a beam, and whoops, let's use this as our active view. So we'll go over to the structure, say we're going to draw a beam, and we have to pick a 2x6. Now, in the event that your selection is not a 2x6, you don't have a 2x6 to pick from yet, then you would simply go over to the Insert tab, load a family, go to the Imperial Library, go to Structural Framing, pick your wood structural framing, dimensional lumber, and then you would pick the 2x6 and load that into your project. So I've already done that, so I don't need to do that. And so now we're looking at the floor plan. I'm going to come in here, and the first thing I'm going to do is just draw, rather than figure out what the height is supposed to be and all that. I'm just going to structure, beam, 2x6, and I'm just going to draw a 2x6 right across my section line there. Revit's telling me that that it can't be seen because it's not within the view range of my cut plane. So if I click on VR, let's take a look. I'm saying I've also I've duplicated this framing so that I have another view that cuts right through the sill plate, and I'll be able to use that also to dimension my beams without seeing the framing on top of that. But I've changed my cut plane to -1 foot so that it is actually cutting through the sill plate. So if you go up to the top here, you can see now I've made a copy of my structural, and I just simply copied it, and now I'm working on that. It's highlighted so you can see that that's the view that I have open here. So anyway, let's go to this section. And you can see that I have my 2x6 in there, but first of all, it needs to be rotated. So we will click on it and come over to the properties box and just say 90 degrees instead of 0. Now we have it rotated correctly. I can locate it by using the align tool. I want it to align to the face, the inside face of the plywood sheathing. So I'll click there. And now I have it in the correct location in terms of how it relates to the sheathing, but it's still too high. I need it to go down to here. So I can simply measure it from here down to there. It needs to drop a foot. So I'll click on this object, and I'll say my start level offset is -1 foot. And then I'll just highlight that. And I'll come over here and do the same thing, Control V, and let's see what happens. All right, look at that. Now it's in the right location. It's longer than it needs to be, but at least it's in the right location elevation-wise. So I can, now I can go, I just want to work on my floor plan here. So I want to close these two guys. I have added that to my quick access toolbar, where if I say tab views, it will tab these views and leave the active view as the open one. If you don't have that in your quick access toolbar, then we simply go up to view and say tab views. And that makes the other two views tabs, but it makes my active view the large view. So let's grab this guy. We just want to drag him back until he hits the face there of the gypsum of the plywood sheathing. And I want to do the same thing here. Now I've changed it to consistent colors instead of realistic because I think that might make it a little bit easier to see. And so now that I know that this is the right rotation and it's at the correct elevation, I'm going to use that I'm going to simply copy it. And wait a second, I think I just moved yeah. So I'm going to copy this guy. I think I just moved my structural framing, which I didn't want to do. So that's why I undid it. I might be wrong. And then I'll just rotate this guy 90 degrees and then use my align tool and come up here and tab or click on the correct line where I want it to be. And it's this, I haven't found a easier way to do this. It's a little tedious because it takes a little bit of effort, but not that much. I don't know exactly where that's going to go, so I'll just drag it out there a little farther. And then, oh, you know what I did? I moved it instead of copying it. So let's undo all the way back till I get my guy where I want it to be. And then tab until you select what you want. And what I did was I moved the sill plate instead of copying it. So we'll rotate it 90 degrees now because I copied it correctly this time. And then we'll just align right there. I think I got the right spot. And right there, yeah, that looks good. And then I can click on this guy and I can drag him across until he butts up against there. This one I'm going to leave there until I know exactly where I need to drag it back to. So again, I'm going to copy this. And now this time I'm going to copy it from this corner to this corner. So I got it right in the one spot. And then I'll simply drag it down across here. And now that I know where I want it to stop at this point, I'll just drag it over like that. And now I've got it highlighted, so I'll copy it again. And I'm going to copy it from where? Copy it from this corner right here to this corner right here. And I've sort of got it in the right spot, except for this. So I'll just drag this over until it hits the inside face of the plywood sheathing. So that looks good. Now, why don't I just take this guy and I will copy him from this corner over to this corner right here. It's in the right location. It's much longer than it needs to be, but I won't get it exactly right until I copy this guy. So let's copy him from here to here. So I got that part of it right. And now I can drag this guy back over. And there might be other ways to do this that are more time efficient, but I haven't found any. So I'm showing you the way that I do it, although it might not be the best way to do it. And maybe somebody will come up with a better idea and share that with the rest of the class. Um, that would be nice. So I probably pulled that up a little bit too much. Okay, so that looks good. See, I'm starting to get my sill plate in there. Let's grab this guy and just copy him from where? Copy from here. And I can just go straight across to there. Then I have a little bit of work to do. The grips are shown, so I can just drag it back to here. And, you know, I can keep copying this guy if I want to, because he's highlighted from here over to here. And I think that's good for now in terms of the vertical ones, the ones that are going front to back. Now I'll copy this guy from here to there and drag him across all the way till he butts up against that one. And then this is kind of mindless work, but it works. And when I say mindless, I mean it doesn't really take a lot of concentration. It's just really effort. We'll stop this guy right here for now. And I'm not going to deal with um, radius. So let's grab this. I will deal with it, but I'm not going to deal with it right now. And we'll just click on this guy and we'll copy him straight down and then worry about cleaning. Oh, that didn't work. I didn't copy it straight down, but not a problem because I can use my align tool, come over to that edge, click it to there. I can also use my align tool to bring this edge up to here. And this particular edge, I'm going to want to drag him down. So I'll highlight it, find the grips, pull them down like that, get a little closer. This is going to need a little bit more fine tuning once I have put this piece in. All right, so far so good. I've got this guy here. I'll grab him and say copy from, I'm going to copy from the edge here down to this edge or of the inside face. And then I can, looks like it looks good already there. All right, and then I can, I suppose I can just keep copying. Really, you'll get a methodology and a rhythm going. And that one that works best for you. Interesting. Okay, so, oh, I was curious as to why I was seeing the rim joist here, but not here. And I remember now that this is 3/4 of an inch lower. So these will have to be 3/4 of an inch lower too. Remember, we dropped the subfloor for the tile. So let's grab this guy. We're going to copy him from this corner right here over here to this corner. And I'm going to have to drag him out a little bit, but we'll worry about exactly where in a moment. So I'm going to grab this guy and drag him back all the way to the face of that. And then I've got vertical. Oh, let's get this one. And the nice thing about working in color here now is that I can see where I have placed my bond or sill plate and where I haven't. It would be a little bit more difficult to differentiate where I have it and where I don't if I weren't working in color. So that helps a little bit, makes it quicker. And, you know, it's just coming around. This guy needs to go back a little bit. This guy needs to come over here a little bit. Okay, that looks good. And so I think I wanted to copy a vertical, so I'll grab this guy and copy him from this corner right here all the way over here to this corner. So the nice thing about paying attention to the start and end or from and to is that, you know, at least I get one part of it in the right location. So now let's copy this guy from here over to here, but we have to drop it down another 3/4 of an inch. So that's going to be -1 3/4 because we dropped the subfloor here for the a tile above. So we'll add another 3/4 of an inch down. And so now that looks good. So that you'd also have to make a note for the concrete basement guy to make sure that they drop the top of the basement wall 3/4 of an inch, or this won't work. In other words, you won't be able to drop this down 3/4 of an inch if the basement wall is the same height as it is all the way around. That's a mistake you would only make once in the real world, because it would be a lot of effort to chip out 3/4 of an inch of that concrete. In fact, probably what they would do if that was a mistake is then they would only put 3/4 of an inch of instead of a 2x6, they'd put a 3/4 inch thick material up here for the sill plate. Uh, and, but it's better to drop it down to begin with. So we'll rotate that by 90 degrees. And this will be our last one. So we'll line this one up right there. And then we'll select it, drag it across to here, and drag it across to here. Now we've got our sill plate all the way around the house. It wasn't really that difficult. And the last thing we're going to do before we stop the tutorial is realize that we also need to put a plate on top of the steel beam, because the steel beam is 1.5 inches below the framing as well. So let's grab this guy. Whoops, I don't want him, I want him. And we'll grab him, and let's see if we can copy from the midpoint, yep, to the midpoint of the beam. So I have to zoom in real close because there's other lines that I might select by mistake. And I want this sill plate to go all the way to there. And let's see what's happening up here. It looks like it's a little bit too much. So well, it's a lot too much. I'll drag it down, line it up like that. Okay, so that's centered on the beam. I can copy it. Now I can copy it from the edge of the beam right there to the edge of this beam. It'll locate it in the same place. And let's stretch him down a little bit more. We want him to come across. Now that guy would actually come, not as far as I've drawn it. I'll have to clean that up in a minute, but it wouldn't stop at the top of the beam. In this case, it would butt right up against the plate that I'm going to put across here. So again, I'm going to copy it. I could zoom in there and say center to center, but if I say edge to edge, it's really the same thing because they're all the same width of beams. If they were different widths of beams, then it would be better or smarter to always go from center to center. But in this class and in this case, all of the beam sizes are exactly the same. So let's pull this guy to here. And this beam, no, this is not dropped. This is the only part that's dropped. So this beam probably has to be down. Yeah, this beam will definitely have to be down 3/4 of an inch as well. Okay, so let's do that. Let's take a look at the properties of this beam. It is -1 foot 1.5. This beam needs to be 3/4 of an inch more. So I need to drop it down another 3/4 of an inch. So that would be 2 1/4. I think, if my math is correct, 2.2525. Okay, so I've just dropped that beam down. So when and I'm not sure how this is going to happen because that's dropped down as well. So I think what will happen, I'm going to draw architecture reference plane, and I'm going to say that this is the end of the beam here. And so this beam has to drop down too. Modify. I'm going to split the element. I'm going to split this beam, try to split it right on top of my reference plane. Okay, so now I really have two beams there. Let's see. What I want to do is I want to disallow the join here because I don't want it to drag it down. If I drop this down 3/4 of an inch, it might drag this edge down with it too. So I've disallowed that join. And when we come over here, I want it to be this, so I'll just copy it, Control C, and then I'll grab this guy. Okay, see how I've split it? It's the same beam, but it's broken in two parts, and I'll change that by Control V. All right, and that should be okay. But just to be sure, let's go take a look and see if what I wanted to happen actually did in fact happen there. So, and yep, see, here's that beam that I just dropped down, and here's the beam right next to it. We split that beam right here. So it's dropped down 3/4 of an inch because the floor is dropped down 3/4 of an inch. So I'll go back here to the first floor. And now I can copy this guy, copy him from the center of that B of that 2x6 to the center of here, but it needs to go down that same amount. Control V, Control V. Let's take a look at that. Let's go back and take a look at what happened there. It's just to see that what I thought I did is actually what I did. And yeah, sure enough, it is. Now, ooh, yeah, okay. So this guy has to drop down too. Looks like I did drop him down, but this guy needs to go back up 1.5 inches. So somehow my math is, oh, not right here. All right, so let's see if we can use the align tool. I don't think so, but we'll give it a try and see what happens. Ah, look at that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So these, I'm going to copy, just I'll copy that from the corner of this flange to the corner of this flange to the corner. Whoops, I didn't use multiple, so I have to go back and start over again. Copy the object from the corner of that flange. Nope, this guy's in the right location. So let's go back to the floor plan now and see what we have. Okay, there's going to be another sill plate on top of here, but it's going to be the normal height, not the dropped height, because we didn't drop the floor here. And so I'll pull this guy over to here. Whoops. Let's click on that guy and just drag him over real quick. And then we'll come over here and pull him back to there. All right. So now, because it's in color, I can see that I have one more guy, and that's tab, select what I want, and I'll copy him from the edge of the flange or the edge of the beam up here to the edge of this beam. And then I can drag this guy across to here. And that's in a good spot. This guy needs slight cleanup right here. And then I might be wrong here, but I do believe we're going to bring this guy all the way down to here. Okay, so now in really a few short minutes, I think we've got our plates on top of the steel beams and all the way around the perimeter of the house. So let's just look at this section real quick just to make sure. So we'll go here, start on the outside over here. Look at that, I got my plate in where I want it to be. Let's come over to this beam. Yep, sits on top of that beam quite nicely. Here, looks like I haven't dropped my level down. I need to drop it. I need to drop that beam or that framing system, and this framing system looks like it's got to go down 1/4 of an inch. Yes, it does. Okay, so these two. So I'm looking for the, not want to selecting the beam, I want to select those dash lines, and I can see that I got it right there. Looks like I already dropped it 3/4 of an inch. What is this one? Let's look at this structural system. It's at -3/4 of an inch too, so this one needs to be -1.5 inches because, so that'll be -1.5, 1.5 inches, okay? And so now look at that, it sits right. I'm looking for that dash line. I'm just hovering over here till I select that dash line. I can see that it's highlighted, and I will change that to minus 1.5 inches. And now that framing system is correct, because remember, we dropped that down so that we could get that extra 3/4 of an inch of what we call a mud base. And so in this case, the wall would actually go down because the wall gets framed before the mud base goes in. But this is one of the places where I said, well, we're going to have to look at the details a little closer before we know exactly how far we're going to extend our plywood. So that's a different tutorial. So this guy will definitely, oh, you know, that's an interior wall, so I can drag it down. This is a stacked wall, so I'm going to have to change that, the parameters of that stacked wall. But I'd like to not do that in this tutorial because I try to keep them as short as possible. So we'll come back and deal with that. But really, right now, everything looks good. We came all the way across. We're seeing all of the things that need to be done are done correctly, except this stacked wall. I'm going to have to add 3/4 of an inch to the height of this first floor wall, and I'm going to have to subtract 3/4 of an inch from this wall, the height of this component of the stacked wall. But we'll stop it right here. It looks pretty good to me so far.